good. How are you?
Doing absolutely wonderful.
Good.
Absolutely wonderful. It has been a minute since we've had a chance to chat, right?
It has been so long.
But I'm like so amped when I heard of all that was you had going on and you reaching out. I'm like, the timing of this could not be more perfect for me. And then also I'm like, oh my gosh, I know so many other people who are in need of such services, but also
Mhm.
hear the different things that you have going on. Welcome. We're going to jump right in because I want all this authenticness.
Can I tell you, the picture of you on Zoom is fantastic.
Thank
That is fantastic.
you. And my headshot from last year, but because of I have not had time to go, nor have I even considered it a priority to even stop to take new ones. So thank you. I am containing myself. Those of you who are not familiar, I'm going to introduce you to my guest for today. But I want to say welcome. I'm going to say Dr. Roshaunda Cade. How are you? I have Dr. Roshaunda Cade joining us for a conversation today. And we are on another segment of Conversations in the Nick of Time, powered by Sparkman Pathway to Careers and KSTL Jubilee 690 AM. I am your host, Nikki Roach, and it is always a joy to bring you insight from industry experts. And those of you who may be studying or completing higher ed, specifically doctoral program, niche it down even a little more, women of color, African American women seeking to get that help. And I now understand what that means and why it's so important. But also, there's just so many other layers in Dr. Cade's experience and expertise that anyone listening who has to write anything, I know will walk away with some tips. So I just want to hop right in and just welcome you to this platform. We have walked across each other's paths for many years.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
just want to start off. People have to indulge us for a little sister girl time right here. How have you been doing?
Doing really well. I am. I'm doing good. My family is good. My kids are big. Last time we talked, I think my kids were they in elementary school? Maybe they're both in high school now. My daughter is driving. It's out of control how big they are, but we're doing well. How are you?
It's been at least probably 7 years, maybe
That sounds about right. Yeah.
each other. Yeah. And even then, there was just such a high regard for you and the work that you do in regards to being a master. I'm going to say a master storyteller, a master scribe. And those of you, we are talking about understanding the art of the written word. If I could put it under that title, you are the master of this. But I want to just take us through the journey. Have you always been a writer?
Yes, I have. But I answer that hesitantly because I even still have difficulty thinking of myself as a writer. But even when I was a little kid, I wrote all the time. I wrote stories. I loved to make up things and live in a world in my head. I had a diary when I was little because, little girls have diaries. I don't know what I was writing in it.
Yeah.
I jumped rope today. I'm not sure what I had going on in that diary, but I had one and I felt really good about it. So, yes, I've always been a writer. I've always loved to read, love the written word. And have always been fascinated by all of the stories around me, people's stories, the stories that happen in nature. I love wildlife shows and watching those stories unfold. And then as I got older, I kept writing and writing stories in high school. I remember this one time, I was a freshman or sophomore in high school, and I wrote what I thought was a spectacular story about a piece of pocket lint and its life's journey. And I got a big fat F on it from my teacher. And what she said was, this was a fantastic essay, but it wasn't a story. And that's when I learned I'm an essayist. And so I've been really writing essays ever since.
You have been writing since a child,
Hmm.
but then if we fast forward it to
Right.
your adulthood, you have served as see, this is one change. I have glasses now.
Oh, they're cute.
Thank you. um 20 plus years working in higher education and writing,
Yes.
teaching writing, and from a lifetime of being a Black woman and also a Black doctoral student at one time, now of course many years past, a graduate. But you also taught um, K through 12 or high school, right?
I did. I taught high school too.
You were still doing writing. I remember our paths crossed when you were at Webster University. We were both at Webster. I was at
Yes.
Webster. And we had a chance to cross paths in regards to you, even then, writing coach, editor,
Hmm.
helping to scribe, and all of this. How is it that you have, I would say, made this transition from higher ed and then you went backwards to go to K through 12? Usually it's the other way around.
I did. Yeah, it is. So I've always been fascinated, like I said, with the written word. And when I graduated from my undergrad with a degree in English, I took a couple of years and was a hall director, which was spectacular work to do. And then I started my master's and got my master's and struggled through my doctorate and got my doctorate and started working in higher ed and, was working teaching English composition and such through all that time. And I spent many years as a writing center director, and that's how we got to know each other. So helping college students and faculty with their writing.
And what
And
is
I was
but
and I was like,
what kind of help are you offering though? Like, because isn't that kind of a heavy lift? Like I may know what's in my head, but you're having to help me figure out what's in my own head.
that's the most fun part of it, is
Okay.
helping people figure out their own ideas and gain confidence in their ideas. Writing is difficult across the board. It's just hard to do, but what's even more difficult is believing you have something to say. And most people do have something to say, but they've been told that it's not interesting, or they've been told that they're not good writers. And so they get caught up in their heads. And I love being able to sit down with somebody and talk with them. What's on your mind? Why is it interesting to you? Tell me all about it. And from that place, we can figure out how to help them write the things that are important to them. And that's what I did in the writing center at Webster. And I wanted to see what it was like doing that in a high school. And so I got my certification as a high school teacher, and I taught high school.
Amazing. Because, and I'm glad you're sharing this, because a lot of times we think there's just this order in regards to our career. So we're gonna dual address this topic here. So
Mhm.
you think we're writing our own story as we live it out, which is usually going up. But some people will say there's a step back. What made you want to go? And it's not a step back. I think it's still
Right.
all, we are where we're supposed to be when we're there.
Yes.
All things happen for the good, you know?
Amen.
So with that, but I think that's unique. I just want to hear from your perspective, like stepping back, because I'm sure someone wagged the finger and like, why
Oh,
would you
yes.
leave? Like, you're in a prestigious place, institution. You're there. You have your Ph.D. and you want to teach high school.
There was a lot of finger wagging, actually. I am intensely interested in education.
Okay.
And that was another way to learn more about education and to see what value I could bring to different levels of education. So, working at a writing center and having taught freshman English all the way through graduate students, I really saw that there was some sort of disconnect in how people conceive about writing ability and how to frame their writing. And I was really hopeful that in high school, I could learn more about how that disconnect was happening and share the way I think about writing with younger students. And a lot of that was really good. Oh, I loved my students.
You mentioned something which is so interesting because this platform is all about leadership excellence and leadership accidents. And so I'm hearing a little bit of leadership excellence is understanding that you as the leader, as the subject matter expert, you just said I wanted to learn
Mhm.
what it was like and how to make this connect where there
Yes.
was a disconnect. Unpack that a little bit because you and I'm trying to get people to me first and others to understand while we may think that you have arrived, you out of your mouth said, no, I wanted to learn, which was kind of like again a step back, but it wasn't a step back.
There is always more to learn. The longer I am alive, the more I realize I don't know. There are places, everybody has something to teach me, and I am happy to learn from every single person out there. And I had never experienced high school outside of being a high school student. So, if I'm going to call myself an educator and strive for excellence in education, I need to try to find out and experience all types of education. And it was a really good learning experience for me. And I'm constantly looking for new ways to learn something. Even with a PhD, there's so much in my field left for me to learn. Now, I will acknowledge I have probably forgotten more than, than some people may have learned, but there's still so much out there for me to learn, and I want to learn as much of it as I can.
Now, in this transition from holding a position, a director position within a higher ed institution, and going to in high school, what was some of the greatest? Give me one lesson you learned. If you could do it over again, meaning an accident or an error or something that could have been thought out a little more, that you would do over from that experience.
That is a great question. I would definitely do it again. I needed the journey. To change things, though, I would have had more experience in a high school setting before jumping in as a high school teacher. Um, I felt I felt like I did well by my students, but just the environment of a high school is very different than the environment of higher ed. And I had spent some time in high schools doing some tutoring and different things, but it is not the same as the everyday in and out of working in a high school. So I would have spent some more time in a high school before jumping into becoming a high school teacher. I did not know I hated bells, but I hated them. Every time a bell rang, I was like, oh, a bell.
Why is that?
They're very jarring. Like you're doing something, whatever it is, like you're helping a student or you're planning or you're eating lunch. And then it's like, oh, it's a bell. And like I have to switch gears very quickly. So the bell itself was jarring. And then just the signal that, all right, it's time to switch gears super fast. And that took a lot of getting used to. And I don't know that I ever got 100% used to it.
Okay. Interesting because I'm hearing, do your research.
Yes.
Risk because us as leaders, we need to not only know our space of interest, but we need to know things that complement our space of interest, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
but do your research, because there are things, it sounds like this has now triggered you, and now I'm going to think of you every time I hear a bill. But it's just, and so did that now prompt you to move out of that space? Some of
Not
the active.
not just yeah, not just the bells, but I learned that that wasn't my space.
Any
Like,
regrets though?
no, no,
But had
none.
you not did it, you wouldn't know that.
Exactly, and that's why no regrets. Had I not done it, I wouldn't have known that wasn't my space, and I wouldn't have met some very great people, and I wouldn't have had a new way to think about how to help people learn to write. My students taught me a lot about how to unpack the things, the burdens people carry with them around writing. So I'm very grateful for the experience and happy to know that it wasn't for me.
But and I can see just how that expands your knowledge and skill set, because oftentimes we get very knowledgeable, and as an expert we, as I mentioned earlier, niching down, we niche down so much to where we find ourselves, sometimes can find ourselves in a silo,
Mhm.
in a bubble, and we are not as attuned to things outside of that bubble. I'm being kind.
Yeah.
And we're not knowledgeable of what that is, and sometimes we can get stuck, and that can actually be a hindrance in regards to being relevant, because now you have this information and you have all of this knowledge that is very specific to something.
Mhm.
But I love this idea of stepping back as a leader, um, in this very unique space of leadership that you have, to even broaden your perspective, which I'm sure now we shift into what's been happening as of late, with LELA House. We're gonna move into all that, but I'm just connecting the dots, because a lot of times we think like, oh my gosh, look at Dr. K, she's doing the thing, but we don't know this whole journey and step back
Yes.
that launched you forward. So the back launched you into this new space, that you found, I'm sure, probably getting in those minds of those other students, not just on the higher ed level, but even the K through 12. I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's a sense of grace that I'm just thinking about high schoolers. Like, that's not my space either. I'm in the higher ed space. Um, but I can see how that could really give me grace and patience in a whole new way
Mhm.
when it comes to just showing up.
Yes. Showing up, that is, I mean, that's key in so many things, but as I think about teaching high school, just showing up was how I formed relationships with my students. They I have found in higher ed, people are excited sometimes, but they'll take the help that's there. They're like, okay, if this help is here, I'll take it. I'll sit down with you. I'll let you look at my writing. My high school students, however, were a little more hesitant. They were like, you're my teacher, so I have to do the things, but you could tell they weren't really feeling it. But as I kept showing up and building relationship,
Mm.
then they were like, okay, this is what I'm thinking about writing, and they started telling me all of these fantastic ideas that they had. And yes, so I'm bringing a lot of that with me. It's not just my skill with writing, but my ability to show up and help people feel comfortable to share what's in their hearts. And for the women I'm helping now who are working on their doctorates, doctoral work is heart work. You don't write a dissertation about something you're not interested in. You write a dissertation about something that is very close to your heart, and it's hard to share that. So you have to have a relationship with somebody even before you're willing to say, okay, here are my ideas. What do you think?
Yeah. And it's, now that we're there, you found, how is it that you've made this transition, higher ed, K through 12, back into higher ed, but now a bump up because now you're working specifically with doctoral students, women of color
Hmm.
in doctoral student studies. And we'll get to the other projects that you do with other individuals who are writing, because I don't want to leave that out. Someone's they have something like, this is the season. And I think this conversation is so timely as we move into the actual writing component of our conversation, um, because we've had time at home and in our sheltering in place locations to really think, and you're
Yes.
starting to see an abundance of writing. It may not be a book. One thing I've learned is that everybody wants to write a book, and I've learned the power of essays, though. As you said, you're an essay. Essays have even more impact that I think than a book, as long as it's packaged well. Um,
Hmm.
Also, people are doing blogs, and they're doing videos, and even on this platform, we're still painting a picture
Yes.
for individuals. So it's everywhere we are now. And what is it that made you shift to back to adults?
Some of it is exactly what you were saying. It's just kind of time. It's just kind of time, and women need support. But as I was working on being a coach, a life coach,
Okay.
I was wondering what was the coaching I needed? Like what portion of my life would I have really benefited from some coaching? And it was my doctoral journey. I needed help, and I didn't know I needed help. You mentioned being in a silo before. I was in this silo, and I thought that's how it was supposed to be. I thought I was supposed to be in this silo doing everything all by myself, and I was wrong. Journey was difficult. And so I would like to help other women like me see that you don't have to do this alone, and that there are people who are willing to support you with your writing, with carving out mental space for yourself, whatever you need to get through the journey, because the work of a doctorate is really, really important. People think sometimes it's just another hurdle, it's just another degree on your wall, but that's not what the work of getting a doctorate is. It's about transforming lives through your research and through your study. It's nothing to play around with. So I want to help people get out there and do that work and affect change.
So why would I want to come to you as a coach? Yes, you can be licensed. Yes, you can have the alphabet behind your name. Why would I want to open up and share that with you or any other coach?
For me, in part because I've been there, I
Okay.
know what it's like to face the difficulties of being a woman who is working and who has a family and who is trying to juggle all of the things, because that's what we do. We are master jugglers. We juggle all the things. So I know what it's like to be that. I know what the extra pressures of being a Black woman are. It's not easy being Black and female in our society, and we take on a lot of extra burdens.
Yeah.
So I have that experience. I know what that's like. But I also think because I care, everybody doesn't care. But I care. I care what you're interested in. I care what you have to say. And I care very deeply that people become everything that they were created to become. God stores up a lot of special stuff in each and every one of us. And I want you to get all of your special stuff out there and change the world in the ways God created you to.
Yeah, and I was trying to find, I usually have a little data point, but um, there is a report, the Journal of Blacks in Higher Ed, that
Mhm.
publication. and they were saying that African Americans are making slow but steady progress towards the doctoral degree awards. And there were about 2,500 African Americans who earned doctorates in 2019,
Mhm.
and they made up 7.1% of all doctorates awarded in the US or permanent residents of the United States. Women made up 64.3% of all African Americans earning a doctorate.
Mhm.
First of all, the first number, the 7.1 in the
Right.
United States, that's major.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this. Some people, I did not make it a big to do, and I've not really shared this publicly, that I am in a doctorate program. I have 3 more classes left. I'm in one now, but I have 3 more. So this year is the year to finish classes. So this is a very unique, when you reached out, I was very like tickled, but taken back, like, God, is this my answer? Because you're right. And it'll make sense to some now, to where, things have to quiet in your
Mhm.
life to commit, not just for a doctorate, but when you're talking about writing any documentation of whether it's in any format or platform, it is a representation of you. And it's
Yes.
coming from such a vulnerable space, because you're taking a stance, you're having a voice. And why do you, I found that a lot of times, because I had to get over this, was straddling the fence, or trying
Mhm.
to walk the line. And until you lean one of the ways, you're really missing out on I think, the essence and the
Yes.
depth that you could have. Why do we do that?
Fear.
Okay.
We do it for fear of a lot of things. Fear of people's perceptions of us. If I write this, what are people going to think of me? Am I going to alienate anybody I know? Am I going to offend anybody? So there's that fear, because words are powerful and they do represent us, and we don't want to represent ourselves poorly. So there's that fear, but there's also the fear of, am I really saying this? Am I authorized to make this kind of bold statement?
Okay. So, yes, regardless who you may be, regardless how many years you've had working in a space or in an industry, that there's a little voice. Um, Jaden Harrell and I call it the committee, and the committee gets to chattering. Who do you think you are to have a voice?
Yes. And then we straddle the line because we don't trust our own voice. We're afraid of who we will be after we have done the work.
Okay, you just saying that just gave me goosebumps, because do you know what you just said? Who you will be? So what are you saying?
Writing changes you. It absolutely changes you. And you aren't the same person after having written something. And it's scary to think of that transformation happening. And change is we stop ourselves when we feel ourselves changing. But what I want to say to you and everybody, dive into that. That is who you are, and that is the space you need to be in.
But
Dive into it.
that's, oh my God. You will change. Writing changes you. Dive
Yes.
into who you are. That's a loaded comment. Unpack this change, for us just a little bit.
Being able to express an idea starts way before the expression of the idea.
Okay.
You have to have the spark of something first. and then you have to research it, and you have to sit with it and mull it over and see how it aligns with your values and your beliefs. You have to watch it and see how it interacts with the world and how you feel about how it interacts with the world. Then you have to ingest it and see if you are comfortable with interacting with the world in that way. And then you express the idea. It's taking all of you and putting it out on paper. And all of that processing and analyzing changes how you see the world, which changes you. So writing changes your perspective. It allows you to look at things in a new way, and you can't go back.
So you've got me all messed up. I am now assigned to a dissertation chair. I was advised by my chair to make sure I partnered with someone outside of her. Hello, Dr. Dixon, Colette Dixon. So we've had our chance. We've been diving in this last 3 months. This is the month that I actually have to submit to do my proposal and move forward. So that's chapters 1, 2, and 3. I didn't even realize how far I was, which I'm happy about that because I probably would have froze this conversation. But now I have a different perspective going in as I move forward, because I know I'm still straddling that fence. It just clarified or brought a new revelation, I should say, in regards to the importance of it, but also the commitment. I'm hearing commitment
Absolutely.
to not just the stance, but to the work, because this is me on paper. We're talking about the art of the written word.
Yes.
And so there's an art to it and a process that goes with it that you just laid out for us.
It's a little scary, but it's fantastic.
And you, as you smile. Now, as we go into there, you say it's fantastic, but many of us, regardless where we are, if we're writing a dissertation or prepping for one, have been working on the process of writing a book. As I mentioned earlier, an essay or a blog, whatever your platform may be, it is no secret that people are writing. Dr. Cade, there are many, many challenges that writers face. Yes, there can be a number of different solutions that we can explore, but we're going to run through a few of them.
Okay.
To hear, more about LELA House and what all that means and how that was birthed, and how people can hop on board to help support as well as be a member. But some of the challenges that writers will have, editing while they're writing. Why is that not a good thing?
Oh my gosh, don't do it. Don't edit while you write. You're activating different parts of your brain when you edit and when you're composing. So when you are editing, your internal critic, who you want to silence while you're composing, is taking front and center, picking out all the things that are wrong. So if you are allowing your inner critic to pick apart things that are wrong while you are composing, you actually never get the chance to compose.
See, look, I'm telling you. I keep telling you, welcome to the global classroom. Professor Cade just dropped some jewels. Oh my God. Don't edit. Now, this is a top one for me. So, I'm getting in some of my little bad habits here. There is the editor and the creator and the composer. They're going against each other. So we just need to basically brain dump.
Yes. Don't try for perfection when you're writing. You'll never get to it anyway. It's fruitless to try. But what happens is you censor yourself so much in trying to be perfect that you never get your ideas out. So write out your ideas, brain dump. I like to tell people to fast write. And fast writing is when you give yourself a certain amount of time, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, however long it is. And the only rule is don't stop writing. Write whatever comes to mind. And if you run out of things to say, you can write, I've run out of things to say. But what happens is your brain gets used to the movement and you start thinking as you write instead of thinking before you write. And when you think before you write, you censor yourself. If you think as you write, the words just come out. Some of it will be crazy, no doubt. Absolutely. Some of it will be crazy. But often what's on the other side of crazy is genius. And you don't ever get to that genius if you don't let yourself travel through the crazy.
Wow. No, there is also, for me, I I I start off, well, I used to do this. Now I've learned how I best write. I used to start, that intro. Let me hammer out an intro, and then I can just flow and finish the paper. But what I've learned is I start with an outline
Mhm.
and I start in the bottom. I mean in the middle. Which
Yes.
basically I just kind of I do the writing based off of one of the topic that resonates with me the most. And then I write, is that right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It took
That is the way
it
to
took
do
me
it.
way too long to learn that. But I had to learn because if not, I get stuck in trying. But I'm like, oh, I can put an addition, I mean, a intro and an outro, a conclusion once I get all my thoughts out. But that outline really helps.
Yes, that's beautiful. That is a fantastic process. And everybody does move through the writing process differently, but you said something so key. You said write about where your interest is or what's resonating with you, because that keeps your energy up and it makes it feel less like a task and more like something you want to do. And I know for me, I can't write an intro until I'm just about finished with the paper because I'm not always sure what the paper is about.
Good news. This is good news. We feel wacky at times. But yes, and so then the other thing is, I think all of us do some level of research. I don't care what you're writing, you're
Mhm,
gonna do some level of research. You're gonna go, whether that's going online to see what other people are saying about stuff, or you're actually digging into some journals or some online academic journals, something like that. But it's all research. I think we
mhm.
get that confused, thinking that, oh, that's just for school. No, we all do some type of research, but you can get lost in it. What's
Yeah.
your advice on research?
I learned a new phrase the other day, procrastinating.
Okay.
And I
Tell us.
think sometimes we research to procrastinate. We don't feel like doing the work of writing. So we tell ourselves, oh, I need to know a little bit more before I can get started. And I am certainly not one to naysay research. I enjoy research and it's very necessary. But more often than not, we are at a point that we can write something
Mhm.
and let your writing dictate to you what research you need to have instead of saying, I don't have enough, I need to research. You don't necessarily know what research you need until you've written something and you've realized, oh, I need to back this up, or oh, I need to learn more about this.
Wow. Okay. Let's see a couple more. Dealing with rejection. So we've gone through the process. As you say, we have put ourselves on the paper, and now others are going to have access to what we've laid out. As writers, how do we get over that fear of the rejection?
One way is to acknowledge it is coming. Rejection will happen. Everything you write is not going to be for everyone. So you just have to acknowledge that what I'm doing is not for everyone, and that's okay. And something else to think about, people who are rejecting your writing are rejecting just that. They are rejecting your writing. They are not rejecting you.
That's a good point. And I'm learning that even in the rejection, there is still commentary,
Hmm.
and it gives you a chance to, again, have a voice and to lean into to a perspective, or to yield into where it is that your arguments or your story lies.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a great opportunity to learn.
Okay. Learning experience, rejection. But I love that you said just expect it. We should anticipate rejection of some sort. But it
Yes.
goes back to also everything, we can't be all things to all people. That's
Hmm.
what I'm reminded of. And it's
Yes,
the same way with writing.
absolutely. It's exactly the same with writing. And what's also interesting with writing is what you have written today may not resonate with somebody today, but it might resonate with them next week, because you sometimes have to be in a different headspace to understand something that you've read. And as we grow and learn and change, what we get out of writing transforms as well.
Now, one writing tip, like that's top of mind, that you give to your clients and your students that you are engaging with.
Make writing a habit.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Explain.
A lot of people like to have writing marathons, and they feel like, okay, I'm going to lock myself up this weekend and I'm going to write all the things this weekend. And sometimes that's a strategy you need to take. But for longevity in your writing, it is far better to write for 15 minutes every day than to try to have a marathon of writing, because you become more disciplined in your writing when you have it as a habit, and you don't necessarily wait for the muse to strike you before you write. You sit down and write because that's what you need to do.
Yeah, I just wrapped up a book, The Practice by Seth Godin, and he
Mm,
talks about in one part of it that a lot of times we wait to get into the mood and the flow to happen to do the practice, and the practice is representative of anything that we're wanting to do.
mhm.
We're practicing. We need to shift our thoughts to think that it's a practice, and we get better as we practice things. But we don't wait to do the practice or the thing or the writing until we don't wait until we feel like it.
Right.
We actually have to do it, and then the flow it will catch on.
It will come.
That was just mind blowing, because I how many times do we say, yeah, I know I need to get up and, since we're talking about writing, yeah, I know I need to get up and go write, but I'm not really feeling like it today. I'm not in the mood. Well, it's I have to create the mood, not the
Yes,
mood create my writing. I'm like, what? This is craziness. And that's
absolutely.
with anything. Fill in your blank of whatever you're trying to be in the mood to do. And if we wait on the mood, it will never happen. As you just mentioned, like it needs to become a practice. Like we
Mhm.
have to find a routine. Very interesting. Now, real quick, tell us about LELA House and what is all going on with LELA House.
So in my head, I pronounce it Layla House.
LELA House. Thank you for correcting me.
Oh, no problem. I don't have a good reason why I pronounce it Layla House in my head, but that's
I
what it
like LELA House.
is. So LELA is an acrostic, and the first L is life, E is education, L is literacy, and A is arts. So Layla House is this umbrella of a space that I've created for women to work on their education, their writing, their creativity. And I'm currently offering um, I have on the horizon a few different programs, but the program I'm currently offering is Sisters on the Doctoral Journey. And that's what you mentioned earlier, the coaching that I'm doing for Black women who are working on their doctorates. And that's a membership people can join. And there are different levels of membership. The first level is like anybody is welcome. And I have posts about things that I think are interesting and useful.
And encouraging.
And encouraging. And that's just kind of to have some community space and know you're not on this journey alone. There are other levels that include monthly meetings for things like writing. So, one is drop everything and write. And at a drop everything and write meeting, we do just that. We start off with a little bit of writing coaching and some writing techniques, and then you have time to sit and write because it's hard to carve out time to write. So sometimes you need to make an appointment to do that and to have other people with you who you know they are doing the same thing.
And that's one thing I'm learning. Community matters.
Yes,
It matters.
community matters a lot. And also, as part of the membership, a different level of membership is one on one coaching with me. And so we can talk about your writing. I am happy to look at your writing and say, maybe we can work on this, or what are your ideas? You're straddling that line. How can you not straddle that line? What do you need to do differently? And we can also talk about just the difficulty of the journey, because sometimes we need to reframe our mindsets for how we're moving through things. And so that's work I do with the women I work with as well.
Wonderful. Now, and then you have also um, the life coach
Yes.
component. How are you bleeding that into this writing space as well? And how does that show up?
I am absolutely bleeding that in to this writing space because I have learned from years of teaching writing that people who need help with writing, which I believe is everyone, like we all need a little help with our writing, also need help with believing that they can write, and they need help with believing they have something to say. And that is deep work to do. Like if a client comes to me and I recognize they don't believe that what they're saying is worthy, that's not a writing problem. That's that's a mindset problem, that's a heart problem, that's a perspective problem. So I coach them through that so they can get to the writing they're trying to do.
Okay, it totally makes sense, but now I'm like, oh my gosh. So, because a lot of times we will come up with all of these other barriers, hurdles, challenges, and it's not the writing, you say, it's the things that we're bringing with us.
Yes.
As Erica Badu says, bag lady, you can't bring that stuff. All them bags like that. So we have to drop those. That is so, I'm laughing at the lyrics to that song, but it's so real. As you get older, you understand a deeper content outside of it being a jam.
Right.
But, but then for you as the coach, having that aha moments at some point in your career to understand, like, wow, here's a pattern here.
Yes.
Not so much the writing. Like once we get past some of these other things, it's like I'm sure the floodgates are pouring out once you get over that hump.
Yes. And it's beautiful to get over that hump because you can't really focus on the writing if your mind isn't right, because you're not writing really what is in you. You're writing what you think people want to hear, or you're not writing at all.
Now that writing what people want to hear, that goes back, I think, to that whole when we were saying about when you write, sometimes that editing while writing,
Hmm.
different censorship, as you mentioned, to us moving forward with the writing, because we're not writing from the heart and from
Exactly.
soul and our own mind, but I guess we're trying to filter it through some place we don't even have control over.
And look at the breakthrough you just had.
I know. You saw that, right?
Saw it. I saw it.
This is crazy. And that's the wrestling part. And it's funny because yes, this is happening right here on the spot. However, the light bulb went off because it's like, how are you trying to navigate through something you have no clue. And so if for anyone listening, everyone listening, understanding that get over get over that. I'm
Mhm.
talking to myself too. We will never know that. It's wow. Wow.
Yep.
And you said we all need help. I don't care how great you think you are. You just proved it. I don't think I'm all that great. But man, that just messed me up. That is crazy. But this is what I'm talking about. This exposure, even just these what some may consider small, the impact from those who will hear this strategy, not just at this one time, but even, as we listen to this on demand, like my goodness, like maybe I can go back and write a little something. And I love the fact that you say the fast track, just get in there, just do it, just make it happen. And I love, yes, while LELA House is more of a community, I think there's still a message to send out to leaders and other writers, no matter where you are in your journey, understanding community matters.
Yes,
Community matters.
it does.
Yeah. Now, what next for you? What next for you? Like as Dr. Cade.
You know, I mentioned earlier, I'm constantly learning and trying new things. And so dabbling in whatever my hands find to dabble in. I definitely want to grow LELA House. I mentioned Sisters on the Doctoral Journey, and that's the community for Black women working on their doctorates. I am also beginning to expand into book coaching for people who are working on books and helping them on their book journey. Because I mean, a dissertation is a book. So I'm working my way into the space of helping women who are writing nonfiction books and helping to shepherd them through that journey. So that's what's peeking over on my horizon right now.
Wonderful. I do know one thing too that is starting to trend, um, and it's actually a pretty good thing, and it's a way to kind of get started. Is in communities, they within the community, there's a topic, there's a theme
Mhm.
that's presented, and everyone writes from their own perspective, so many words, and then they bring this compilation together and launch it. I mean, I think that is a beautiful way of getting started for those who are even in that book space, wanting to be an author, but may feel that they are not equipped to spill out 175 pages, which I still think you can do it in 25 and have impact. I do.
You can.
Yeah.
You
But
also
that is
can.
just, I can totally see how this new space, with this book coaching, I don't see it ending anytime soon. Because, I mean, there's going to be so many more stories even after we get through this current season of life in this current climate.
So you totally reminded me of something that I'm doing that I just wasn't thinking about. So thank you. You talked about stories and writing to a theme. So I think it's important to help Black women who are working on their doctorates, but I also think it's important to hear their stories of how they became doctor.
Okay.
And so I started a publication on the platform Medium called Dissertation Deliverance, and I'm collecting Black women's doctoral stories. I just started it. So far, there's only two stories, mine and another woman who just earned her doctorate at the end of 2020. but I am trying to get all of the Black women in the world who have doctorates to share their stories and to publish them in this publication.
Nice. Okay. So where are they sending it? Where can they find you?
So this is called Dissertation Deliverance, and it's on the blogging platform Medium. But honestly, the best way to find me is on I've got a bunch of websites. I should probably consolidate that, is on one of my websites or Facebook.
In Facebook, you're under what?
Roshaunda Cade.
Okay. And I will make sure I post that on my platforms, and also the on-demand presentation of our talk right now.
Oh wait, it's Roshaunda D Cade. I have my middle initial. It's
Okay.
Roshaunda D Cade.
That's
Yes.
Roshaunda D Cade. Cade is CAD as in David E.
Yes, ma'am. That is it. And I'm glad you said that because that's going to be the quickest way
Okay.
to reach me.
Wonderful. I'll make sure that all that gets posted. So you have the platform to share one inspirational thought with those aspiring and current writers. What one message would you give them to give them hope?
God made you unique. Share it. Don't try to be like everybody else. He made you the way he made you on purpose.
Thank you. To the point, and you gave us instructions. I love it, Dr. Roshaunda Cade. I am just so overjoyed that we had this opportunity to talk about and have this conversation about the art of the written word. And like I said, I'll make sure all your information gets posted. I am looking forward to working closer with you in this year for more than one reason. And then also, again, like I said, just for the community and just the great work that I know that comes along with you and your presence and your commitment to serving others in excellence. So I just applaud you for your journey, for sharing your journey, but also opting out of fitting in and helping others not fit in. So thank you. We need that.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to be here. This has been exciting and wonderful. I appreciate you.
Wonderful. Want to thank all of the listeners. Thank you so much for listening to another conversation in the nick of time. Show powered by Sparkman Pathway to Careers and KSCL 690. I am just elated about all that's going to be happening. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your journeys as you begin to pick up that pen and put it to paper or click those keys on those laptops. Either way, you've got a voice. We just learned about some strategies to get our story out. In the meantime, don't forget you possess everything you need already to be successful, and that's success as you define it. So go be good, be great. Make sure you show up